So this has been a video that's been kind of cooking up in my head for a while, and I thought I'd actually, like, sit down and talk about it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, is what if the Empire of Man existed in Middle-earth. A while back, I did one talking about the Skaven, what if the Skaven existed in Middle-earth, and I was like, yeah, nothing good will happen if the Skaven existed in Middle-earth. So, yeah, we're going to talk about, like, a good faction. Like, what if a good faction existed in Middle-earth? Now, I know, yes, the Empire of Man isn't, like, all good. There's some shitty parts to it. But, comparatively speaking to the Imperium of Man, it's kind of saintly. Anyway, so what would it be like if the Empire of Man existed in Middle-earth? Let's talk about that. Now, obviously, if you brought in the Empire of Man, the big thing is that they will be the most technologically advanced race, period. Like, not even the dwarves of Middle-earth were that technologically advanced. Maybe the dwarfs of Warhammer, they were pretty advanced, but these dwarves, the dwarves we have here, they've got some, great weaponry and, creating spectacular armor, but they aren't on the same level as what the Empire of Man has. They have something that a lot of the other races don't have in Middle-earth. That's gunpowder. These guys, remember, the Empire of Man is one of the most aside from the dwarfs, they are the most technologically advanced race out there. Not counting the Slann and from the lizard men or the other the creatures who created them. They have the Empire of Man is not based on the Middle Ages, like a certain other race that fucks horses. This is a race that's based on the early Renaissance era. So these guys are very capable of using gunpowder as well as swords and shields. They also have advanced They also have advanced artillery that isn't just catapults. They have actual rockets. They have tanks, not great tanks, but But I don't see anyone else have a tank. Yeah. So when you have a technological foothold over your neighbors, it kind of stands to reason that you kind of hold the cards in negotiating. So the Empire of Man would, if you just drop the entire Empire of Man into the world of Middle-earth, Sauron is going to be like, I don't like Gondor, Rohan, crush that first. So the Empire of Man is a group of what is the Empire of Man? The Empire of Man is a coalition of different different little city-states and countries that all make one empire. Make one big empire run by an emperor that is voted by the elector counts. And who is the Emperor of Man? Karl motherfucking Franz, aka the best emperor in Warhammer. I said what I said. Not just in Warhammer Fantasy, ever. Like Warhammer in general. So, Karl Franz leading the Empire of Man. Let's kind of talk about, what would it be like with Karl Franz in Middle-earth? Like, how would the Empire of Man react to each faction? So, obviously, let's talk about Gondor and Rohan first. The other human civilizations. Now, Karl Franz is not a tyrant. He's not an idiot either. And he also knows that, hey, these guys aren't on the same level as I am. They're still using, fucking bows and arrows. We've got muskets. But they're not evil. Franz is always a diplomat first and a warrior second. But he knows when to switch those roles. So when encountering, let's say, Rohan first. Let's say the Empire of Man encounters the warriors of Rohan first. Would it be open war? I don't think so. I think if this is Theoden before he gets taken over or anything like that, I do think that they could easily come to be allies or at the bare minimum have trade between the two races. The two countries. Gondor is a little tricky. If this is Gondor when it's ruled by the Steward of Gondor, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. But if it's Aragorn, then yeah, Aragorn would be totally down with talking diplomacy with Karl Franz. But yeah, the Steward of Gondor ain't gonna have that. In fact, I think he would just kind of cut any kind of trade or negotiation with them. So if this is also Theoden when he's being corrupted by he's being hexed and corrupted by, not corrupted, but controlled through Wormtongue via Saruman, that's going to be a big deal. But on the other hand, the Empire of Man's pretty big, and again, muskets beat arrows. Most of the time. Yes, I know, there's going to be one person who's in the comments section who's going to be pedantic and say, actually, muskets have been known to misfire, where an arrow you can just fire. You ever seen a musket misfire in the Warhammer games? But, yeah. Anyway. What was I... Oh, yeah. So let's say, like, this is, like, Steward of Gondor. He's not going to even bother because he's going to be jealous of Franz. And Rohan will not give any aid. So, now... so, if that's the case, I think some writers of Rohan would ally themselves with Franz to battle Sauron. But I don't think... if this was right during the age of the war with Sauron, then... yeah, the Empire of Man kind of doesn't really have human allies at the moment. Sure, they would have some warrior they would have some warriors who left the Riders of Rohan would probably ally with them, but at the same time, and maybe some Gondor soldiers as well who would be mercenaries. But from the factions themselves at the moment, yeah, the Empire of Man stands alone. But that's never stopped them before. Now, what about the elves? It's very clear that while the elves and mankind aren't exactly great with each other, they're not enemies either in the world of Warhammer. So I think, again, with Franz leading the... with them leading peace talks, I think there could be a good alliance there as well. Same with the dwarves. The dwarves are a little more... I think... the dwarves here are a little more, greedier. They're also, it's not our problem. But again, I do think that with Franz leading diplomacy, I think he would get some allies in some regard. But as it stands in the world of Middle-earth at that time of Lord of the Rings, the Empire of Man would be, for the most part, fighting alone. Give or take a few allies here and there. So, now we come to it at last. What's going to happen with battling both Isengard and Mordor. Like, the Empire of Man, like I said earlier, would be... if you just dropped the Empire of Man in the world of Middle-earth, Sauron's gonna go like, the fuck is that? Yeah. So what would it be like? So let's talk about Isengard first. Obviously, the Saruman is going to try to corrupt Carl. He's going to try to, whisper seeds of rebellion or sow seeds of rebellion, because men can be easily corrupted. We've seen that before, not just in Middle-earth, but also Warhammer Fantasy. So we have seen that, in that world, men can be easily corrupted. So, but would Carl be corrupted? We have seen that he can't be, he has faced corruption and faced temptation before, but he's not. He's just gonna, here's my answer. Gallimiraz. Bonk. So... therein lies... But the other Elector counts, a lot of them are pretty shitty. A lot of the Elector counts are shitty. So it could stand to reason that Isengard could, bog down the war with Sauron in, mindless political, petty squabbles or bureaucracy. Couldn't get that word out. So therein lies that. And also... Saruman is a pretty powerful wizard, but the Empire of Man's got wizards too. Now, are they as powerful as Saruman the White? That's hard to say. It really is. But they do have magic, and I do think that... And also, the Empire of Man has this thing called the Inquisition. So if any kind of upstart dark magic is happening, that shit's going to be dealt with in an extremely painful way. So... The Empire of Man does have safety guards to counter anything, but again, the White Wizard's pretty powerful, and he's also got some serious backup. Hell, even there are even trees trees and birds that could easily act as spies for Saruman, and by extension, Sauron. Now, Mordor is a fascinating one, because Mordor, while the orcs and trolls and goblins under Mordor's command, they are not at... They are numerous and they are strong. I could totally see the Uruk-hai and the Empire of Man just clashing in just straight up battles, like just straight up bloody fights. Your basic orcs and goblins are gonna, like, again, the Empire of Man's fought them before, greenskins, and they're bigger and tougher than your typical Middle-earth orc. But then there are other things that Mordor has at its at its disposal. The Balrog, Balrogs, dragons, fucking spiders, bats. All of those are things that the Empire of Man has come across and challenged and beaten back. But Sauron is pretty powerful. He is, and of course, we got to talk about the ring raids. Also, could you just imagine an epic image of like Franz doing battle with the Witch King of Angmar? Just think on that, that image for a second of like him battling the Witch King. Are the ring raids powerful? Yes. Could they challenge a lot of the wizards in the Empire of Man? Yeah, that's a strong possibility. So the ring raids are also powerful forces of their own right. But yeah, the Empire of Man can fall, and we have seen it fall in the end times of Warhammer. But they do have a better chance because they are united under a powerful king who does know right and wrong and does know when to be diplomatic as well as when to declare war. So, and you've got that technology on your side. And yes, I know technology doesn't just save you, but it does give you it does give you help when you're rolling in a tank and just arrows and crossbolts are trying to hit your tank. And in the meantime, you got this big fucking griffin coming down and just slaughtering your enemies. So, yeah, I think the Empire of Man would probably be a major superpower that Sauron would be like, I cannot have that there. And if his eye is focused on the Empire of Man so much, then his plans going on in Gondor and Rohan kind of slow to a crawl. You see what I'm saying? So, in retrospect, it actually helps everybody if the Empire of Man is fighting Mordor and Isengard. They would be standing alone. Could they hold their own? It's hard to say, but I personally think they could actually hold that hold back. If they can hold back the Chaos Gods and orcs and Skaven and basically anything else that isn't in the Empire of Man that isn't an elf or a dwarf, then the Empire of Man's going to hold out for a while, and the rest of the world can keep going and keep fighting. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. So what do you guys think? What would it be like if the Empire of Man existed in Middle Earth? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.